This week, I'd like to kick off the show with probably the most consequential story from the weekend, which it was a weekend that started out with a rare bit of good news, at least in our hemisphere, with the release of former Brazilian President Lula from prison. You'll remember back the last time we talked to Glenn Greenwald about Operation Lava Jato, or car wash, about basically just the complete stitch up and sort of legal coup that landed him in jail and put Bolsonaro in charge of one of the largest countries in the world. Lula was released from prison, but that brief high of something good happening in the world was then immediately counteracted by the actual military coup that just happened in Bolivia, where their president Evo Morales was asked to resign politely by the military and police after a lot of protests regarding allegations of election fraud and the end of, like, he was allowed to run for president again after from what I understand, the Bolivian Supreme Court ruled that like term limits were essentially you could do away with them. Like it wasn't
Right.
like
Right. There were allegations that OAS had influenced that vote for the referendum on term limits, but yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get too far afield of here. Like this is we should probably talk to someone more of an expert on this. But the idea is you don't need to be an expert to understand that like this is 1,000% a coup by the right wing of that country and the intelligence and State Department of this country. There are so many fucking. I mean, like, let's just go through some of these reactions I've seen today, and like these aren't from like Elliot Abrams types. These are from people who work at Vox, The Atlantic, New York Times. Like these are like good liberals in America who are all finding a way. Like for instance, New York Magazine, the unseemly end for Bolivian President Evo Morales serves as a cautionary tale of what happens when world leaders remain in office for too long. So yeah, it's about term limits. That's why. That's why the military literally.
It's the same thing as Michael Bloomberg. You got it.
Let's see. It was there's also another one of my favorites, Yasha Monk or whatever the fuck that guy is. Said here, Evo Morales' resignation is not a coup. It is one of the few big victories democracy has won in recent years. This is my favorite part. Both leftist dictators like Venezuela's Maduro and far-right populists like Hungary's Orban should be terrified by it.
I can't wait for the CIA op against Orban. That's coming, right?
Yeah.
Any day now, guys.
You think Orban is terrified of what his military might do should he win re-election again?
No, yeah. It's just any fucking day now. Any day.
Oh, wait, my other favorite, Clara Jeffrey of Mother Jones says, wow, it's a very dicey situation in Bolivia right now, but like I hope democracy will, prevail.
Did you guys see my favorite? You guys saw my favorite Brazil post ever made, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
So it's like a Wall Street Journal guy, like he's a reporter for Brazil specifically. And this post, so Lula da Silva he was ordered to be released from prison the other day, and there was like a great video of Lula. It was like Goku. 100G training environment. It was awesome. But
it was like when he was flying to Namek.
Yeah, it was
10
so
Gs.
sick. It was Lula actually looks fucking good. But he quote tweeted and said, "You know what? I really like Lula and Bolsonaro. I think they're both great guys, and I think they just both want what's best for Brazil." And it's like, did you smoke weed for the first time in your life at like age 50? Like, what the fuck? But Clara kind of did one of those herself. It's pretty cool.
Wait, this is Clara Jeffrey's thing was dicey times in Bolivia. Morales has taken several end runs around a democratic process, but let's hope it is a democratic process that succeeds him. I mean, what succeeded him is the military looting the presidential palace and stopping his plane from leaving the country after telling him that he. And again, I want to make clear here that like what's going on with this election is that Morales' party agreed that that they would abide by the OAS's like audit of whatever the final vote tally was, and the opposing party did not agree to that. And as soon as the military just stepped in, so it's pretty clear who's on the side of a democratic process in this, and just like. Overall, the thing to remember about Bolivia is Morales, has been president for a while there, but like under his time in office, he has actually cut poverty in half, drastically reduced poverty in that country and illiteracy, but also steadily grown the economy and avoided the kind of hyperinflation that plagues other governments and countries, like for instance Venezuela, when they try to do similar redistributive measures, right? So the fact that he's being removed from office by a military coup shows you that's exactly why it is so important to these people to remove him from office. Is not because like, oh, he's made his country like a nightmare, like they say about what Venezuela is like, but precisely because he has been successful in doing the kinds of like land and wealth reforms in that country that have made it a better, like it is in every way a better place. So that is exactly what's going on in Bolivia right now, and pretty much the entire liberal consensus is that he's a dictator, and this is a huge win for democracy, which should tell you, by the way, how they're going to react if America ever elects even a vaguely left-wing person president.
Oh yeah. It always takes something like a left-wing government being overthrown by the fascist military to unite everyone from the alt-right to liberals to libertarian Cato Institute guys.
And the other really funny part about this, where Clara is like, very dicey. I hope whatever follows is democratic. Like, did they not notice the fact that like the guys who like went on TV literally they tore in half the like indigenous people's flag of Bolivia and put a Bible on top of it in the presidential palace and says, "We are claiming this country for Christ." It's just like, a bunch of guys wearing like, skull pins and all black just show up and they're like, "We are the state now." And they're like, "God, I hope these guys are good."
They seem nice.
Yeah.
I hope they're nice.
I hope this is better than what they're replacing. So yeah, I mean, like all these people can't possibly all be that stupid. Like maybe Clara is, but like the most of them I think are just covering for what they truly believe in, which is like, if democracy puts in charge compliant, market-friendly neoliberals, then we love democracy. And if it doesn't, then it's a dictatorship. And, we like for the good of, freedom or whatever, we have to, again, it's always a good sign when the police are celebrating a popular protest.
Those are
you know
the
what I
best-
mean? That's how you can tell
yeah.
like it's a good protest that like really represents the will of the people, is when the cops are helping it to happen.
That's the absolute like platinum level tick. I saw was the one that was like, wait, so the army and police aren't the people? That's awesome.
I mean, I'd like to do a show that goes more in depth about like what actually happened in this election, and also Morales's actual career in that government and some of the things he's done in that country. But like, suffice it to say, there is a time for nuanced analysis of political leaders you may admire that blah blah blah. Oh, like maybe they're not as good as you thought, et cetera, et cetera. Now is not one of those times.
No.
And anyone trying to tell you or like thread that needle about being like, well, I don't support the military doing what it did. We do need to have a conversation. Stop. Cut them off. Pay no mind. They are totally full of shit. And either they know it or are just too dumb to be taken seriously.
Right. I don't want people to think that like what you put forth on Twitter is the most important thing about this. No, like no one in Bolivia really gives a fuck what you have to say, what we have to say, even what like, a New York Magazine editor necessarily has to say. But like Will said, this really is not the time. Like the only real thing to put out right now, when the military is literally marching down the fucking president, is this is a coup. Fuck this. Yeah.
And also, like, we should also like be very clear about this idea that this is about electoral fraud, or that he's abusing like his office by running for another term, or that they've stolen the vote or whatever, is all totally spurious.
Right. A lot of the thing about vote fraud relates to a quick vote, which is like not even the official vote. There was an entire thread that I wish I could link about the quick vote versus the official count.
And by the way, the official count has not even been tallied.
Right,
and again,
exactly.
like the OAS, the rather corrupt group that's overseeing this coup, it has to be stressed again. Morales, his party, said that they would abide by what was the actual final, not the quick vote, but the final tally of the votes. And the opposition party did not agree to that because the military just said, no, we're canceling this.
No, this is like pointing to the fucking New York Times elections needle to justify your coup.
Yeah, exactly. yeah.
No factual basis for any of this.
Just
It's like
marching in the street with pictures of Nate Cohn.
And also, like, and the thing about the quick vote is that, like, it's according to the rules, it's like if if Morales' party had shown to be up like or won by more than 10%, then they could form a government. And by all accounts, they've done just that.
Yeah,
So
people
like this
said it was
idea
a-
that like
yeah.
that like oh like the opposition party like actually got more votes. So we're talking about like a difference of like 10%, which there's a threshold that they've basically cleared by most accounts.
Right, and people who know way more about this than me said it's actually like extremely statistically likely that those last counted votes would skew heavily towards Morales.
And again, when Bolsonaro and Trump are both taking victory laps over this, if you're a liberal, like maybe like what does that tell you that you're sipping out of the same toilet as they are?
Isn't that the most nuanced take? That
Yeah.
Donald Trump is a mentally ill criminal who needs to be in prison, but also his State Department and his whims should dictate the governments of the world.